We've got a pet food spectrum, basically going from not ideal to kind of okay to ideal. Really, really critical that we feed our cats the way that they are meant to be fed. If you read a food label and the first ingredient is not meat, it's not suitable for your kitty cat. These are the Dr. Judy approved cat foods. Why do we see so much early kidney disease in kitty cats? What do we want to avoid when we are searching for the perfect food for our kitty cats? How do you know that there are synthetic vitamins and minerals in your pet's food? Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Morgan, your pet's advocate, and today I want to talk about feeding kitty cats. Cats are not small dogs. We cannot feed our cats dog food that is made specifically only for dogs because it's going to be lacking nutrients that our cats need. And we all know that food is the foundation of life. You are what you eat. If you don't have a good diet to start with, you're not going to get maximum good health. So really, really critical that we feed our cats the way that they are meant to be fed. Cats are obligate carnivores. They are little meat-eating dinosaurs, and that's what we need to be looking for when we are looking at food for our kitties. We want a very high meat content and very low carbohydrate content. If we look at the digestive tract and the teeth of cats and dogs, they were made for a high meat diet, and it stands to reason that the main ingredients in their food should be meat. If you read a food label and the first ingredient is not meat, it's not suitable for your kitty cat. In canned foods, water might be the first ingredient because they are a very high moisture food. So that might be where we might make an exception, but we actually don't want very much water added. Me personally, I still want meat to be that first ingredient. Cats will overeat a high carbohydrate diet because they're trying to satisfy their need for that protein that they are meant to be eating. Remember, in the wild, what's the natural diet for a cat? A whole mouse, a whole bird. They're going to be eating meat, and that's very little carbohydrate content. I will see my outdoor cats nibbling grass once in a while, and that's because they do need some fiber in their digestive tract. So when our cats overeat those high carbohydrate foods, that leads to obesity, diabetes, fatty liver disease, joint problems, so many issues that we get when our cats are fed the wrong way. We do need a high moisture diet. Think about the moisture content in a rabbit or a bird or a mouse. It's going to be 65 to 70% moisture. Most raw diets and canned foods are going to fall somewhere in that 65 to 75% moisture range, so that's going to be more species appropriate for our cats, as long as that canned food is a high meat food and not loaded with a bunch of grains and fillers. Unfortunately, dry kibble is only about 6 to 8% moisture normally. That's not what our cats need, and that's why we end up with so many urinary tract problems with cats that eat dry kibble. They're desert animals. They're not big drinkers. They're not getting enough moisture from their food. So when you have a cat who eats dry kibble, you may notice them at the water bowl a little more. My raw-fed cats, I rarely see them drink. They don't need to. They're getting all that moisture from their food. We need moisture in order for the food to be digested. And if it's not in the food, where does the moisture come from to digest that food? Well, it's pulled from the cells of the body. It's pulled from what's called the interstitial space, which is the space in between the tissues. These cats that are chronically fed dry kibble are literally running around in a state of dehydration most of the time. Why do we see so much early kidney disease in kitty cats? It's because we feed them wrong. There is also some link to over-vaccination with kidney disease, but that's a different topic for a different video. So moisture is so important for our kitty cats, and if you have a dry-fed cat, they can be really, really addicted to their carbs, and it can be really difficult to get them to transition over to that high moisture diet that you want. We do have a course on Dr. Judy U called Kick the Kibble, How to Feed Your Cat. We also have another one by Dr. Amaya Espindola called Transitioning Cats to a Different Diet. Like I said, cats don't need a lot of fiber in their diet, and the fiber that they normally would get in a wild prey meal is because they're eating the fur, they're eating the feathers. And like I said, my cats, I will see them occasionally nibble on a little bit of grass. But the fiber in their diet should be less than 5%. We need high quality sourcing when we're looking for food for our kitty cats. So the big thing to look at is, are we buying a human grade food with human grade ingredients, or are we buying a feed grade with feed grade ingredients? Most of the highly processed foods are going to have feed grade ingredients, which can include meats that were inspected and condemned, or meats that were rendered and may not actually be a named meat. So if you see something that says meat meal, meat and bone meal, meat byproducts, that could be any animal. That generic meat is not defined, whether it's poultry or red meat from a cow or from a pig. We definitely want to avoid anything that has meat in the name instead of a defined meat. In fact, the FDA allows feed-grade pet foods to violate U.S. federal law. In April of 2019, the FDA stated, "We do not believe that the use of diseased animals or animals that died otherwise than by slaughter to make animal food poses a safety concern, and we intend to continue to exercise enforcement discretion," which means they don't care that your pets are being fed diseased animals that could be loaded with cancers or other kinds of diseases. When it comes to any food, sourcing is paramount. So the sourcing of the ingredients is going to have a huge impact on the nutritional value of the food that's being produced. Things to look for would include humane, ethical, pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative agricultural practices in the ingredients that are being supplied. Organic may not be necessary, so you should focus on the dirty dozen when you're prioritizing buying organic. So there's a list of the cleaner foods and the dirtier foods. So the dirtier foods, those are the ones where you might want to think about, maybe that's where I should spend a little bit more on organic. With seafood, wild caught is always going to be better than farm raised because it has a better nutritional profile. Susan Thixton and Truth About Pet Food is a great resource for information on sourcing and high quality foods. Okay, so we know what we're looking for our kitty cats. We're looking for high meat, low carb, high moisture, low fiber, and high quality sourcing. What do we want to avoid when we are searching for the perfect food for our kitty cats? We want to avoid the starchy carbs. So that includes peas, lentils, wheat, corn, soy, potato, chickpeas. We don't want all these starchy vegetables to be a high quantity in what we're feeding our cats. Remember, they need low carbohydrate content, low fiber content. The cats have zero requirement for any of these starchy elements, and that's why we don't want to include them in the food. It's just going to lead to obesity, searching for more protein, overeating, obesity, all the things that we listed before. High carbohydrate diets also stress the pancreas. The pancreas is constantly having to work because carbohydrates break down to sugars. That raises the blood sugar, which means the pancreas has to work to release enzymes and insulin. We see a lot of cases of chronic smoldering pancreatitis. Cats are different from dogs. They don't generally get acute pancreatitis as often as dogs do, but a lot of them have chronic pancreatitis that we're not even aware of. They're just sort of not doing right. They vomit more often than they should. And then when we do an ultrasound, we go, oh my gosh, look at the scarring in the pancreas and chronic inflammation that's been going on there. So a lot of times you don't know what's going on, but we see it on postmortem and we see it on ultrasounds. And when we have that chronic stress on the pancreatitis, besides having chronic pancreatitis, it can also lead to enzyme deficiencies and diabetes and fatty liver syndrome. Pets eating high meat diets will make a slightly lower urine pH. So for our cats, it's really critical that we keep their urine pH at a level where we're not going to contribute to a high pH that makes stones, is more prone to having urinary tract infections. And we do see a higher pH in animals who are fed high carbohydrate diets. We want to avoid poor quality ingredients. So some of those, a lot of these come from rendering. Things like animal digest, animal fat, dried egg product, meat and bone meal, beef tallow. Generic fish meals, so we want it to be named. We want to know, is it menhaden fish? Is it cod fish? What fish is that meal from? Fish oil or byproduct meal will not appear on the label of a good quality food. Now, with the fish oil, again, we want to see a specific name: salmon oil, sardine anchovy oil. We want to know what's being put into the food. Meat and poultry byproducts and meals can have the entire animal, so including fur, feathers, and feces. So for instance, if they're culling a lot of chickens, the whole chicken is actually vacuumed up into the system, and so they don't take the time to gut them, remove the feathers. The whole animal goes into the rendering soup. But it can also include rendered zoo animals, roadkill, diseased animal carcasses, euthanized animals, which means there's euthanasia solution. The head of the largest rendering association in the US at a speech to AFCO said that it is virtually impossible to have a rendered product that does not have euthanasia solution in it. So that came from him, that didn't come from me. FDA is aware of that. Again, they consider it non-actionable, and we can have rotting putrid meat. A cow that died in the field a week ago can be sent to rendering and be rendered down and put into pet food. Kind of disgusting. Especially for kitty cats, recommend avoiding wheat in any form, white rice, brewer's rice, which is a cheap non-nutritive filler, brewer's yeast extract, corn in any form, and I will tell you, corn is in so many cat foods. They are not carnivores, they are carnivores. Dried beet pulp, rice hulls, ground psyllium husks, and soy. These are all cheap fillers to help raise the protein level in the food. It's not what we want. Many pets have allergies to these grains and fillers. We don't see as many allergies in cats, but when they do get them, they tend to be very severe. Sugar and high fructose corn syrup have no place in pet food. They're added as a preservative, but your cats don't need them. And any dyes that are added to the food to make pretty little colored bits, we know how toxic and carcinogenic these food dyes are. They do not need to be in your pet's food. They don't care what color it is. They really care, does it smell good? Is it something that I taste and like? We want to avoid binders like glutens, carrageenan, and guar gum. So these are going to be found very commonly in canned foods to make them stick together like a little meatloaf when it comes out of the can. Surveys have shown that pet owners do not like soupy canned foods because the animals make a mess when they eat them. In my world, let them eat soup. I don't care. They can make a mess, but I don't want glutens, carrageenans, guar gum, and binders in the food. Some of these are carcinogenic and contribute to inflammatory bowel disease and allergies. Binders such as porcine plasma, which is basically pig blood, and montmorillonite clay are fine. So there are companies that use those as binders in their canned foods. Much, much better for the health of the pet. We want to avoid preservatives such as ethoxyquin, glycerol monostearate, BHA, BHT, and propylene glycol. They have been shown to be carcinogenic. They cause illnesses in pets and people. And pet food manufacturers don't have to list ethoxyquin on the label if the ethoxyquin was used on a boat at sea to preserve fish. So you may have ethoxyquin in the food without knowing it, and it is a carcinogenic agent. A lot of these preservatives have been outlawed in the human food industry. Some of them are still allowed, which shocks me. Europe is much ahead of us as far as banning some of these things. I'm hoping that we start seeing some of these being taken out of the human food and pet food industry in our country. We want to avoid synthetic vitamins and minerals for a couple of reasons. One, quality control. We had a huge recall with tens of thousands of pets that died back in 2018 and 19 from excess vitamin D in the food. When these synthetic vitamin mineral mixes are made, and most of them are made overseas, sometimes there's a mistake made. And if there's too much or too little of something in that food, we see it a lot in the livestock feed production where there's excess selenium or monensin gets in there, which is deadly. So these synthetic mixes can be very, very problematic. We also see adverse reactions, inflammatory bowel disease, allergies, when synthetic ingredients are added to the food. And the reason these synthetic vitamin mineral mixes are added in, particularly in highly processed foods that have been heated at high heats, a lot of the nutrient quality has been destroyed during that heating process. So these synthetic vitamins and minerals are added back in so that it reaches the standards of minimum requirements for sustaining life. But there's too many problems with these synthetic vitamins and minerals, and they're a foreign body or a foreign agent to the animal's body. So the immune system looks at it and says, "Ooh, I don't recognize that. That didn't come from nature." And so a lot of allergies and inflammatory bowel disease can actually be traced back to these synthetics. And when you move away from them and start feeding something that doesn't have the synthetic vitamins and minerals, poof, the allergies are gone, the inflammatory bowel disease is gone, and it's a really simple fix. A lot of these synthetic vitamins and minerals don't have the cofactors, which are nutrients and chemical compounds that frequently appear with certain vitamins and minerals in nature. These important substances play a vital role in helping the pet's body utilize the vitamin, mineral, and key nutrients. And without them, the nutrients may not be absorbed, may not be usable, and may cause damage to the body instead. How do you know that there are synthetic vitamins and minerals in your pet's food? It's going to sound like chemical soup. So you start reading the label and there's a meat and there's maybe some liver or some organs, and then there's maybe a little bit of vegetable or fruit, and then you get to the chemical soup. That's the synthetic vitamins and minerals. You really want to be able to read the label and know what every single thing is that is on that label. So there are better forms of some of the synthetic ingredients. For instance, selenium. Using selenium yeast over selenium selenite would be preferable. For minerals, we want to look for amino acid chelates. So that's going to be like a proteinate. It might say zinc proteinate. Much better than anything that is a sulfate or an oxide. So zinc proteinate, if you see that, that's been bound with an amino acid. That's going to be a much better form than zinc oxide or zinc sulfate. And we do have a blog on synthetic vitamins and minerals in pet food if you want more information on that. So we definitely want to avoid ultra-processed kibble, particularly for our cats. It's too dry. It's too filled with carbohydrates. It causes obesity, diabetes, pancreatitis, urinary tract disorders, kidney disease. Not appropriate for our kitty cats. Greg Aldrich, PhD, is a consultant to the pet food industry. He states extensive processing can increase variability, destroy essential nutrients, and create unwholesome byproducts. From a formulator's perspective, this creates a dilemma regarding how to assure the diet is sufficiently fortified while avoiding excess after accounting for processing effects. See, it's a really tricky thing to do. In other words, they really don't know how much nutrition remains in the food or how much of each vitamin and mineral needs to be added after processing. Unless each batch is tested after all the processing, there's no way to know, and no company does that. Not all pet owners have easy access to high-quality foods made by caring companies. While it's all good and well for me to recommend feeding only organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, antibiotic and hormone-free, non-GMO, locally sourced food, that's not possible for everybody. Some people live in food deserts. I get that. I've flown across the country and I've looked down from the plane and go, oh my gosh, these people are 100 miles from anywhere. So I get it. And financial constraints may limit your ability to feed the highest level of nutrition. Product availability may be a limiting factor, and a lot of pet owners do not want to handle raw meats or feed raw meats for their pets. They don't want to make food for their pets. They don't have time, and you may be unable to feed raw diets during boarding, daycare, veterinary hospital stays, those sorts of things. With these constraints, it is possible to improve the diets of all pets. Pick the best food you can using these criteria. If you can't feed 100% fresh food diet, feeding even a small amount of whole foods like real meat, eggs, fruits, vegetables will bring vast improvement to your cat's health. There are simple ingredients that have been shown to fight cancer and improve gut health. Mushrooms. By incorporating 1 or 2 meals made with whole foods each week, or by making a healthy topper or buying a healthy topper to mix with a processed food, your cat's health and longevity can be improved. We've got a pet food spectrum, basically going from not ideal to kind of okay to ideal. So not ideal for our kitty cats, absolutely kibble is the least ideal. Next up would be canned. And then we have freeze-dried, air-dried, dehydrated, meant to be rehydrated when fed to kitty cats. Then fresh food, whether it's raw or gently cooked, whether you make it at home or whether you buy it. In that pet food spectrum, going from kibble all the way up to the raw, we're going from very low moisture to high moisture, which is what we need for our cats. From high carb in the kibble to low carb in those fresh diets. Going from many poor quality ingredients in the kibble, moving up to maybe fewer, but a few of those proteinate minerals that may need to be added in, or a little bit of vitamin that might need to be added in, going all the way to no synthetics at all. Not ideal, the binders, the glutens, carrageenan, guar gum, xanthan gum, all those gums, going all the way up to no binders in the food. Maybe it's a little more soupy. We want to move away from the chemical preservatives toward natural preservatives like vitamin E and rosemary. So for our kitty cat lovers, we have a download that you can get that goes through all the different foods that I'm going to list, but these are the Dr. Judy approved cat foods. That does not mean these are the only cat foods that are good for your cats. These are the ones that I have tried and fed to my cats personally. They have liked them, we've had good success, and they fit the criteria that I just went through. They're in alphabetical order, so this is not a, 1 through 10. So All Provide, Evermore, Goodness Gracious, Green Juju, OC Raw, Quest, which is made by Steve's Real Food, Raised Right, Small Batch, Solutions, Steve's Real Food, and Viva Raw. If you want to make your own cat food and you need to find some parts and pieces, including some of the organ meats or some weird proteins, then our sources that we recommend are Hair Today, My Pet Carnivore, Raw Feeding Miami. These companies offer grinds, organs, bones, all the other parts and pieces you need to make your own cat's food, and they ship direct to consumer e-commerce. And for more options, a broader range of cat foods than what I've listed, you can look at Susan Thixton's The List at truthaboutpetfood.com. Hopefully everyone can convince their cats that they need to be eating a really high quality, high moisture, minimally processed food. That's what all of my cats eat. That is what they have eaten for the past 20 years. They're living to be 19 and 20 years old. I'm hoping to get them past that, go into their mid and late 20s. But that's what we're working toward. See what you can do to get your cats on a healthy diet.